Welcome to Upleveling, the podcast dedicated to building better leaders, smarter systems, and bigger results. There's one thing that we all have in common. We all get 24 hours in a day. Yet some people seem to get so much more done than what we get done in our day. And it's perplexing, but also, there's ways and there's strategies or tactics that people put into place so they can get more done throughout their day. Today, we're going to talk about that. And I want to tell you why I think time management is a hoax. Basically, I just told you, our time is fixed. We cannot change it. So if we can't change what we have, we can change how we use it. And we can change our actions and our habits. So today I want to help you start thinking along those lines of how can I change my habits or how can I change my actions so that I am better at using the time that I do have. I'm going to jump right into the tactics. Here are things that I've implemented in my life. My team has implemented in their life some of these things. And so I really do believe that they're helpful, and it's things that have helped. The first one, time blocking. Now, I feel like that was kind of all the rage last year. You heard it everywhere, or maybe I was just hearing it everywhere. But time blocking is where you sit down and think about the types of things that you need to get done in your week. And then we want to batch them together. And it's important to do that because your brain, I don't know if I know the exact statistic, but you lose so much of your brain power when you are switching between tasks. This is why it's not great to be a multitasker. And the reason is you are so depleted by the end of the day because you've used so much of your energy switching from task to task instead of bunching all of the same or like kind tasks together and using your energy more wisely. So that looks like, I'll tell you, like for me, I still do some bookkeeping reviews. And so I have an hour blocked in my day every single day to see what do I need to review and get out the door. I also have coaching and firm stuff all time blocked on Fridays because that's the time that I get to think by myself and I don't see clients. I try not to see employees. And so that is all time blocked to that day because if I bunch it together, I'm going to use my energy on that task instead of switching between tasks. This is also going to reduce your decision fatigue. I think a lot of people don't think about the energy that it requires making decisions. And so if we can start to eliminate some of those decisions, we're going to be able to get more done because we're using our energy on the things that matter. So what does that mean? That means just like with the time blocking, I don't have to think about, when am I going to do bookkeeping reviews? Like I already know because I've already made the decision and it is time blocked in my calendar. So that's not a decision I have to think about. It also helps me prioritize what matters. I am a 100% believer that it's only important if it's on the calendar. And that applies to me 100% that if it is not on the calendar, it is not going to happen. And I want you to think about the calendar that you do have. We talked about how our time is fixed. So you have that same week over and over. And if you have not been able to get things done and get important things done in your business over the past 5 months of 2025 or over the last year, you have to start treating your weeks differently. And that includes time blocking and putting things on your calendar that are important. If it's important, it's on the calendar. And so let's pull in kind of past episodes. If you've listened to past episodes on cash flow planning, setting goals, increasing revenue, anything like that, and you're like, oh yes, I really need to do that, time block that into your calendar. Say, hey, every Monday I work on the business, and then every day after that I work in the business. Something along those lines. This is also going to help your brain use less power because it knows what to expect. So our brain does not like surprises, and sometimes it doesn't know the difference between a real fear of, let's say, an alligator attack or anxiety in your brain that you have created. And that's because our brain doesn't like to be surprised. It works much better when it knows what is happening. I want you to think of it along those lines. I know that sounds crazy, but science really does back that. So how can we eliminate surprises in our day? And that comes down to time blocking and putting the things on our calendar in the buckets of where we want them. Second tip is delegating. This is probably where I would say clients need the most help. Not even clients, all business owners, myself included, because sometimes it's so easy to think like, oh, I can just do this really quickly. Let me get this done. Well, what happens is as you grow and grow and grow, those little things become more and more and more. And before you know it, you've spent 40 hours on fixing a piece of your website when you really don't even need to know the login. You have to have people to do that for you. And one of the best books that I read either last year, I think the year before, was by Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan, and it's called Who, Not How. Because as business operators, it's very easy for us to say, hey, how can we do this? How can we fix this problem? When we need to ask ourselves, who can fix this problem for us? That way we're delegating the lowest level tasks to other people, and we can focus our time on high value things. That's things like coming up with new services, or maybe creating new sales, or developing business relationships with people that you need to meet to up-level your business. You need to be focusing your time on those highest level tasks and not the other things. What I want you to do is sit down and do a value-based task audit. Here's what that looks like. I want you to write on a sheet of paper. We're going to have 3 columns. At the top of column 1, it's $100. Actually, you can write $10, either one. I can't even do math today. So column 2 is going to be $1,000, and then column 3 is $10,000. I want you to write down all of the tasks that you're currently doing in your day-to-day week and put them into one of these categories. Now, all of the things that are in that $10 or $100 column, those are things that we immediately need to get off of your list. So you need to start thinking about how or who can I delegate this to? How could I automate this? Either, I don't care what you do, get it off your list. This could even be looking like hiring an admin, which I think should always be the very first hire of any business, or a virtual assistant. There is someone out there that can take that off your plate. And then I want you to start looking at the $1,000 task. And those things do make you money, but that's also not your zone of genius. Who can we hire to start doing these $1,000 tasks for us? Also, how can we prioritize these things? Definitely prioritizing them over our $100 task. And then our third column, that's our $10,000 task. And we want to find out how can we spend our time in this column. This is things like I mentioned before, developing business relationships or vendor partnerships or some sort of new sales and marketing program. Maybe it is speaking at conferences. It just really depends on what your skill set is, but this is where you want to operate. This is you being the CEO and you really spending your time in the place that's going to generate the biggest return. Our next section is energy management. Now, this is something I'm really passionate about because you just don't hear a lot of people talking about this. And this is ways that you can create energy in your life. One of the favorite things that I was told or read somewhere was thinking about a power plant. That power plant does not have energy, it creates energy. And we have to do the same things in our own body. Creating energy is things like working out, really good nutrition, and good sleep. And listen, I know all about building a business, and sometimes there's a very little sleep that comes with that. But I really want you to start prioritizing that, because if you're going to show up and be your best self, you have to generate the energy to do that. We can also bring energy management into our calendar management. So these are things like if you have really hard things you need to think through, let's say like a strategic plan, or you're trying to redo all of your pricing, you need to think about when is your best thinking time. And that is different for other people. Like for me, it's always morning, but you might be a night owl. Think about when do you have the most energy and the most creativity to do these things? And then block those in your calendar at that time. You have to protect your time in order to get these things done. And you know your different energy levels and what that looks like. But I want you to also sit back and think each morning, what energy do I need to bring to this day? Or what energy do I need to bring into this meeting? Think of it along the lines of, if I'm going to meet with an employee and we're going to have a really hard conversation, I want to make sure I'm bringing the energy of compassion and kind, but I'm going to give feedback that is not subjective. And I'm going to give criticism with care. So it doesn't mean that I'm just going to be really soft in the meeting. But what this means is I'm going to think about what energy level do I need to bring. That's going to be different is, let's say I'm walking into a meeting with an upset client. I have to bring a different energy to that meeting than I do to like a team meeting. So we want to start thinking about that before we even start our day of how or who do I need to show up as with what energy. So if that's really fascinating to you, you may want to check out the book High Performance Habits by Brendon Burchard. It's really, really good. And that book is all science-backed. And he did so much research to come up with the methods and the tactics in that book that it is really fascinating. Okay, our fourth thing, boundaries. So you have to respect your boundaries. No one else has to. And I hate that term of like, oh, no one respects my boundaries. Well, duh, because they're not their boundaries, they're yours. It is your job to enforce them. And you need to make sure that you're clearly communicating with those around you what those boundaries are. For instance, we have a rule in our office, if someone has their door shut, we are not going to go knock and bother them, or we're not going to call them because they've already shut their door and said, hey, I need this time by myself. That's a boundary we're going to keep. So think of boundaries that you need to set in your life and then make sure that you're holding them. And this is boundaries around like your time and around delegating. Again, I just can't say that enough, that it's like, if something is important, you have to put it on your calendar and you have to respect the boundary. This comes down to self-integrity. And you see so many, especially like in the CPA world, of like everyone's website says, oh, we have integrity. Well, that is fantastic, that, and I feel like we have to at a minimum in our job, but do you have self-integrity? Do you make plans for yourself and keep them? That's when you truly can up-level your business. So let's think on that, but pull it all into action. And what can we do to make sure we're having a more productive week? We're going to start time blocking. We're going to do an audit of all of the activities, all of the tasks that we're currently doing in our day. And we're going to start choosing things that we can delegate, get them off of our list. And then we're going to start setting boundaries for our time and our actions, and we're going to hold them. So when we pull all of this together, this is not about doing more with our time. This is making sure that we are doing the right things with our time. And we're really prioritizing what matters. So I hope that you enjoyed this content today. This is obviously something I'm very passionate about because, again, we all have the same amount of time. And I know you have big goals just like I do. And if you're going to reach them, you have to start changing some of your habits and things that you're doing throughout your day. So thanks for joining me. Thanks for tuning in to Upleveling. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It helps more entrepreneurs like you discover the show. Let's keep the conversation going. Connect with us on social media or visit aligncpa.com for resources and updates. Until next time, keep leading, optimizing, and upleveling.